Hey. I know, okay, on June 24, site reservation water management board meeting. And, to start with an opening prayer, go to the please, thank you.
That's great. Dear Lord, we just want to take a moment before we start our meeting. Start it with you. We want to acknowledge you and praise you and thank you for the day that you've blessed us with. We're grateful for each person here and for those that may be joining online. We want to be mindful of those that have heavy hearts today. We especially lift up Ethan as he is helping his family today. We ask for those in our community that they receive special blessings for the challenges that they're facing due to illness or uncertainty. We ask for wisdom as we walk through this agenda today, Lord, that we make good decisions and we serve our community well. In your name we pray. Amen.
Thank you. As always, meeting minutes on the site reservation water management board website, FRWMB.gov. Your attendance, please.
Clayton Matt,
Here.
Roger Noble,
Here.
George McCloud,
Here.
Ken Pitt,
Here.
George Smith,
Here.
and Shane Hendrickson is absent.
Shane is not only absent, I think he's wrong.
Yeah.
Is that correct? Yeah. So, everybody knew that? Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, so thank you.
Do we know if there's going to be a reappointment?
I certainly don't know. I don't know, George, have you heard anything?
No.
Yeah. I know when I was working there, every so often they try to move the superintendent and it would be without one for sometimes months at a time. So I don't know what their plan is. I do know that whatever official BIA business has to be handled now has to be reported. So, with him not there, so. Anyway, any potential conflicts of interest? Georgia? Ken? No. Roger?
No.
George?
No.
We have none here, thank you. Meeting minutes of 5/21. Been a while since we met.
Mhm.
They don't do well.
That's awesome. Mr. Chair, I move that we accept the May 21st, 2025 meeting minutes.
Motion by Georgia. Also. Second by Ken, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. It's approved, thank you. Doc, please, Linda. Comments, questions, concerns, changes?
Mr. Chair,
Yes.
I have a suggested change. After speaking with Ethan yesterday, it sounds like he's gonna have very, very limited availability to appear online for this meeting.
Okay.
I have concerns with number 9, which are the WPMPs. And I just don't think it's best practice to have a discussion on those when the drafter is not present.
That's fine. Any concerns with that, board members? No. We can drop number 9 for now. Okay. Thank you. Yeah, he shouldn't worry about trying to block me. He's got his hands full. He made the changes. And now to the motion, please, adopt the agenda.
Mr. Chairman, I'll make a motion to adopt the agenda for June 24th.
Motion by George,
Guess I'll second it, just amend it with the, note that item number 9 has been removed from the agenda.
we have a motion, George, second by Roger, as amended, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
The agenda, thank you. Public comments or items not on the agenda, we have no physical public here, anybody online?
One person. If anyone online would like to speak, please raise your hand and I will allow you to. Seeing no public comment online.
Okay, no public comment to be had at this time, we'll have the opportunity later in the agenda. Board committee compensation for April and May. Committee compensation.
Mr. Chairman, before we move on, I have a pleasant announcement to make.
Yeah, please.
On June 6th, Sydney received her master's degree.
Oh, congratulations, Sydney.
Thank you.
Excuse my ignorance, but your degree is in,
Natural resource management.
oh, super, congratulations.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Sorry.
Oh, that's good. That's good, good side note, but great, thank you, Sydney.
Thank you. Thank you, Ken.
Yeah, it's always a relief to get that done.
Oh, yeah. I've had a lot of time. I've played frisbee golf. I went zip lining.
Oh.
You're like, wow, there's a life
Yeah.
to live now. Yeah.
That's true. Thank you, thanks, Ken. Okay, 2.1, board committee compensation for April and May.
So in front of you, you have two green sheets. One of them will be May and one of them will be April for board compensation, regular board compensation. And I believe that you usually approve them one at a time, so I have April 1st.
Yep. April. Committee compensations. Roger and Georgia. You guys video that? Yes.
Yeah,
Sorry.
sorry.
Want to make sure. Okay, we'll take a motion. Motion to approve.
Mr. Chairman, I'll make a motion to approve the April board compensation committees.
Motion by George,
I'll second.
seconded by Ken, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
April, approved. Thank you. Moving on to May. Roger and Georgia again.
Yeah.
Okay. We'll take another motion to approve Maybe. Do you hear a motion by Ken?
Ken's still waking up.
Yeah, I'm still waking up. Motion to approve the May committee.
Motion by Ken,
I'll second it.
second by George, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
And then I think we have the board compensation for May, and excuse me if I missed the public comment on that, we'll get to that on this one. I don't think there's any comment here to be had, but sorry for missing that. All right, board compensation for May. I'm good. Roger,
I'm good.
yeah,
Good.
I'll make a motion to approve the board compensation for me.
motion by Roger,
I'll second.
and by Georgia, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Board compensation for May, thank you. And then I missed the public comment, is there any public
No.
comment? Okay. I think we- no public, on the record, no public to make comment, thank you. Finance director, budget please.
In your packet, you'll have two budget sheets. The top one says budget versus financial reporting. That one was posted for public approval. And then the second one has been modified to capture changes requested by Roger. And we are in the middle of the third quarter, and so what we have in front of you is what we're working towards for getting our reporting done to our funding parties. So this is something that has happened. This is first and second quarter. This is budget versus actuals. And we have Tina waiting to talk in depth with you guys. So whenever you guys are ready.
Yeah.
Oh, she left.
No, she's in.
Oh, she's here.
Yeah.
Oh, there we are.
Hey, Tina. You're on mute. I can't hear you. You must hear us, but you're.
She's in her new office, so.
This must be important.
We're moving up to the top.
All right, how about now?
Hear you.
Here you.
I'm in my new office, so I'm unplugging things and plugging things back in. So also I'm on a Wi-Fi, so I'm going to turn my video off while I'm talking. That seems to help a little bit until I get hardwired. My telephone company will be here soon to hardwire me. But I'm going to share my screen, and please let me know if I need to make it larger, but you do have a copy in front of you. And so our goal is to, make this a consistent way of how we present the information. And so we took your budget that was submitted, and then we just looked at your actuals. And so let me make sure I can share my screen. Oh, it's not turned on, Rhonda, or somebody. Anyway, we took what was submitted and we entered your budget, and then we presented it with what was actually happening. Typically, we want to do a quarter by quarter and not have two quarters reported at the same time. But we're getting there, and by next quarter, we should be able to just present one quarter at a time. And I'll just keep adding columns, and then I'll be color coding them so you kind of can keep your eye on each section that we're talking about. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Okay. All right, let me see if I can share here. Well, let me stop my video, and then I'm going to share. Okay, so what I like to do when I'm just when I'm creating these and then when I'm presenting them is really on the column A is, or the first column is your different categories of how you run your organization. Then this was the budget submitted. And then to kind of make it all fit on a one pager, or not really a one pager, but more in order, we put your indirect for your salaries, and then we get your total budget. And you'll notice I want to point this out just for presentation purposes. I took this indirect amount and I moved it to go this way rather than this way. And so that's where this number comes from. I hope that makes sense. And so for quarter one, your actual staff salaries was 89,726, which left you a remaining of 584,000, which was 87% left of your budget is remaining. And so what I like to do is kind of from the mathematicians in the room, is you're wanting to look at things that are, you should be about, 25% of your budget around this time. So any outliers would be things like maybe like 70, 77, 70, where you want to see where there are any like major differences, I guess you would say. And so on your indirect or your fringe benefits, you had 217,000 budgeted. The actual was 28,972. So that gave you a remaining amount of 188,160.
Tina, can I interrupt you here for 1
Yes.
second?
Mm-hmm.
So in preparing this with that indirect, you'll see that in the budget, there's line items and it's based on 35%. But some people don't use all of the indirect costs, because some people have elected to get health insurance elsewhere and other things like that. So for that reason, it was decided not to keep that in a vertical column, but to move it to a horizontal column, because we're really tracking what is actually the amount incurred versus, because the 35% is probably an excessive amount because of what is
Yes.
actually used. So do you want to add anything to that?
No, that was a great explanation. I was trying to think of how to put that, but you don't want to, it's kind of like you're small enough where you don't really want to identify who is doing what. So we just put it in, going this way. So, and also to track that individually takes a lot more time and effort on our end. And really is it something that we want to know. The end result is we want to know how much we're budgeting 35% for fringe. And we didn't spend a lot of that, but that's because some employees choose not to do it, or there's a variety of reasons why. So that's why it's that way. And now I could go to contracted services. So we have legal at about 38,000, board compensation. I don't know if you want me to go through each of these, but I'm just kind of looking like, for like board compensation, accounting and payroll, you're really good at like 75, anything like 75% or higher is good. So I don't see any like, maybe the one that I would point out would be your telecommunications because I believe that part of the 35% up here might have kind of included your employee reimbursements for cell phones. But those actually are not like they're in this bucket here. So this, when you do your new budget, I would adjust it so that you're accounting for those. Rather than put it up in the fringe, I would put it down in where it comes out of the telecommunications line item. And that might be a little bit why that's high too. Let's see. Another one would be probably this one, and you're gonna see a negative here. Oh, let's go to actually this one too. So this one's a little bit high. It might have had some conferences that you went to, so you want to keep an eye on that one and not make sure you have enough for registration fees. But this one was it was a IRS fine or fee, and so that one, why that's a little bit high. And so if you look at first quarter, as a whole, at the end of first quarter, you have about 84% of your budget left, which when you're in federal or this kind of funding sources that has both state and tribal sources, you want to keep an eye on this because you don't want to have too much left and you don't want to overspend either. So if you're a mathematician on here, you could really understand how you can make sure that you're keeping this at about, about 75% right here. Okay, now we're going to, any questions on quarter one? Okay, quarter two. So as of 3/31, and you'll notice there's some, gaps here and that, and the changes that Roger asked for were just more clarification, which I appreciate those questions because as a board, we know the people by title, and so I just wrote off to the side here what these are. So we have Ethan, this one's obviously vacant. You have mid-level hydrologists, water resource specialists, and so forth. So that kind of gives you an idea of who they are. Then, so your staff salaries are at 116,583. And then I just did the formula, so to add those together so we know at the end of the quarter how much we have remaining. And so you're a little high now because you should be right at 50%, around 50. So if you start to see things like 50 and above, then, obviously, so this is a great example. So if you're just looking at this in terms of your budget, this one 50%, that's right on. You're like, yes. If you're looking at this one for hydrogeologist, you're like, ooh, I got 100% of that left. I need to get that position filled or redistribute it to some, whatever you got to do. So that's the way I would look at these if I was looking at them. And then the board, you're just kind of making sure that these numbers are staying at you want to look at the outliers, I guess you'd say. So let's see, we have legal. Oh, any questions?
Yeah, can I interject here for 1 second?
Mm-hmm.
So this budget we have in front of us, I just want to point out too, up in the upper right-hand corner, you see it's a draft working copy. So we wanted to keep this draft so that it's subject to revision. It's not it's not really for public dissemination because it's got names in it, but I wanted to have the names in here so all the board members could see whose positions were filled or which positions were filled and which positions are open still. Couple big things is, we've had some changes, for instance. The mid-level hydrologist, James, was in that position. As of last week, we have hired a new person to fill that position. And that's their salary in there now. And then if you go down to contracted employees, we had 3 or 4 people in that already. For instance, there was Anna and Kevin Schubert and Scott were in there, but they're no longer on our payroll. James has been moved to that contracted services or contracted employees situation. And then I didn't realize it up until, I guess, last Friday. Georgia and I met with Ethan, and Christy was originally hired as a compliance tech, but then I guess she got switched to a water resource specialist. So there's some adjustments that will need to be made there. And then the big thing is, with this mid-level hydrologist position, the salary amount exceeds what the budget was. So Tina has told me that we probably need to request a budget amendment of our financing entities so that we accurately can make that change, or correctly make that change. The other thing is we've got a couple applicants in for the hydrogeologist position. And so those are kind of being looked at now too. So the big thing in the salaries thing is we are below our, or we were way above our amount that's allocated. We should, like Tina said, we should be at 50%. We're at roughly 70%. But if we can fill a position, then I think we'll be there, close enough to there. So anyway, I just wanted to add those footnotes so that everybody knows how this came about. And Tina, if you wanted to talk more about that budget amendment, I'll leave that up to you.
Yeah, no problem. So, anytime you have, basically, in my experience, and this is a unique situation, but in my experience, if you want to move like money around within the same line item, you can do that. You can move money around. We just can't like add dollars or subtract dollars from the initial budget submitted. So anytime you move things around, you want to do as a budget modification. And then that just gets submitted, and then we have paperwork that shows that's why it was done. And then everything's, documented, and basically I see what happens is down the road when, someone else is involved, and they ask you, well, why did this change? And then you'll go, well, someone told me, so you just have to have it in writing, and you have budget modifications all the time. So, and as you guys are kind of growing, you'll get these a lot more, not perfect, but pretty close. But there'll always be changes, especially like in this time, especially with employees, because you have different employees come with different skills. And for example, you might offer Dustin that 99,000, and then maybe two months from now that doesn't work out, and you hire someone else, and you hire them at 85, back at 85. So it could go back and forth for a while. But just when I'm presenting these, then as a board, you kind of understand what's going on, that that position, you know, is still hasn't had a consistent person in there. Those are just things to keep an eye on. And then the bottom line would be, you know, making sure that you keep those at 50, because then you run into a situation where at the end of the fiscal year, again, you have, it looks like you have more money than you do because you just, and it's hard to fill positions in this day and age.
So, Roger and, you know, the numbers haven't changed here, so this is working out. So what change do we need to make to do the budget modification? We're changing the 85 to the 99,940, is that correct?
Yeah. So you could, so like you could do it like that where I'm presenting this to you and you have a major change. So that'd be like, I would say, let's add $15,000 to that, that position. Then that's a major, you know, modification. So then you just vote on it. And then the next time I present this to you, then that 85,000 changes to 100,000.
We can change that number, that means we're also taking it from somewhere else.
Correct. You can either take it from somewhere else or you can add it from, well, actually, you would actually have to take it from somewhere else because that's what you, this is all based off your funding agreement at the end total. So
You'd probably take it from the hydrogeologist position.
mm.
And we have incurred some vacancy savings over with that position not being filled too, so.
Yeah, or the contracted employees too, because
Yeah,
that you lost, or you only have, I think you only have James now. And that's so yeah, it really depends on the person, I believe, who you hire. And you could also hold off until you do your budget next year, because oh, that's another thing, is you have to remember that it's okay to be not right on, and you, just as long as you know like why you're not. And then at the end of the year when you do your budget, well, when you're starting to, actually we should be doing our budget, getting the next one ready, then you're gonna go, okay, well, we need to up this one to 115,000 next year, you know, something like that. You could also do that. You don't have to necessarily always change it every time, because if you do that, you're gonna have, well, you'll have so many HR people coming in and out till you get the right fit. That just happens. It's up to you guys, though. You know, it's totally up to you.
Roger, is that what your thinking was?
yeah, pretty much, I guess if we wanted to. I guess we're almost through the third quarter. I would like to get the third quarter in and then send out a budget amendment at that time.
Okay, so, by the time we run the third quarter report, we want to have a modified budget that we can approve. Everything?
Yeah,
Okay,
yeah.
so, will that work for you?
So what I need, is approval to get this submitted to the compacting, or not compacting, the funding parties, because we do need a report. And so this is why we had the budget meeting, and we're bringing this to public approval, so we can have board action to be able to submit that, to make sure we're meeting our requirements for reporting. And then we can tackle the third quarter and budget modifications.
All right, be specific, what do you need from us?
If, do you guys, does the board want to approve the public posting version to go to the funding parties?
And what version is that?
It was the first version without,
Okay,
we are overdue to report. at this point.
Okay. And then we can modify the budget later.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, so,
Yeah, that's the plan. Yeah, we need to get this to the funding agency so that we're current with our reporting.
We need the consensus or we need action on
consensus is fine.
consensus is fine. So work is good. Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. We have it.
Perfect, thank you.
All right. We'll look forward to that budget model, if we think that makes sense, yeah, you know, capture that every so often, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, very good. Anything else?
No, this was just, the working copy was just so the board will understand
Next one,
what's going on.
yeah.
Can I just make a comment about that?
Yeah.
So for future discussions on this in the public forum, this is being recorded, so now this entire
Yeah,
working copy is recorded within the meeting.
yeah,
So just next time, please don't show the working copy with names to be recorded on the meeting. We can have it for the board to look at in the meetings, but this is now gonna be memorialized.
right, got it, thank you. All right, anything else?
So my understanding is we'll get working on third quarter reporting and, we will make budget modifications for fourth quarter. Is that my understanding from the board?
Yeah, after this, recording, we could work on that.
Okay,
Okay. Tina, anything else for us?
Tina, I think you're muted.
I don't have anything else. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your time today. We really appreciate you.
Okay, before you go, Roger, have one more comment here.
Oh, okay.
So one final thing, last week, but George and I met with Ethan also, Ethan requested that we have monthly, a monthly thing like this, in addition to quarterly. I talked to Tina about that, monthly is no problem to add in those additional columns. So, you know, our reporting requirements are quarterly, but it's good to have monthly, so we have. Right.
Yeah, yeah, that'd be fun. Yeah,
And so I've instructed Tina to go ahead and develop monthly as well.
for the management.
Yes.
Yeah, all right. Very good. Anything else? Anything else? You guys good?
I just would like to thank Rhonda and Tina. This is a huge amount of work that you ladies have pulled off and appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, very good. Thank you. Anything else for the whole? Thanks, Tina. Item 5, MSU local government center training update. Who has that?
I do, but you also can talk about it too.
I was just going to say that, the NSU local government training has been scheduled for July 8th from 12 to 5.
They should have received the calendar.
Right, yes, yeah, there hasn't been a calendar invite, so that has been sent to the board.
Did everybody get the notice on that?
You said 12 to 5.
Yes, 12 to 5 on July 8th.
It shows 1 to 5 on the calendar, but.
I could change it.
So are we good with the 1 to 5 or we need to correct that?
She's gonna update it.
Okay. Is that here?
Yeah.
Doing that here?
Yeah.
And that's not an online thing, it's an in-person thing?
Yeah, it'll be in person. There is a Zoom link in that calendar invite, just in case something does come up. But it is an in-person training.
Any questions on it? Do you know the folks who are doing that thing?
So it should be the same group that provided your previous open meetings training. They do trainings all across the state, so they're a comprehensive group.
Do we know, do they send out any material ahead of time?
They probably could. I mean, they're pretty easy to work with. I would assume that they could just send out their PowerPoint that they're gonna have, because they have like a packet that they use for most of the like smaller businesses and government entities that they talk to, so.
I don't know if it would cost extra to do that, if the board be interested in that, or it just came to mind. Something in advance, or we should,
We're gonna walk through it that day, so, and I'm sure they'll give it to you afterwards too, if you want it.
all right, thank you. This building project plan. Do we have something there?
Yeah, in your packets, we actually have a proposal for the architectural services from Lisa. And then after that, we do have the letter that we sent to NNW.
Did we talk about meeting with them again? And before we kick this off, or? Did we do that? I know always been super.
Mr. Chair, that was what Ethan had instructed me to remind you all to do, was to come up with some sort of initial group. Whether it's one or two board members, and Ethan and potentially a staff member to meet with Loci for the initial setup meeting. To discuss not only this proposal, but kind of the timeline working forward.
That's good, I think we need to do that. We see this, but I don't see the numbers. We need to have that discussion with them, so, yeah, I don't know what their availability is, but I guess it's really up to us to decide what our availability is. You want the full board to meet with them, you want them to meet with the full board? How would you like to do this?
Chairman, train already have a building committee. Just Georgia and I, we've done nothing.
You wanna do that?
Well, I just.
Yeah, well, let's do that, I mean, if you guys have been pull something, we can get it to them and get them a couple dates, and then whatever that is, let me know. I think they'd be interested in sitting,
You wanna be on the committee?
if I sit in at this time.
I just wanted to formalize that.
Yeah, I'll just join you whenever you say. Yeah, I'm available, so, yeah.
Are there days or times that work better for you than others?
Yes and no, I don't know, what do you guys? Will obviously be something in July.
I'm fairly open, except for the tail end of the third week of July.
Yeah, Monday afternoon, and Fridays. Some Wednesdays.
Then, I'm not available. That's about it.
Yeah, I'm not in this one.
Well, how about I call them? I could call tomorrow and get some tentative dates. Get the process started.
Yeah, and if we're looking at Monday, the 7th or 14th.
Both of those dates work with me. 7th and 14th, what do you think?
So far,
Okay. And since they're out of Missoula, I assume this would be like a setup for a virtual meeting? Or would you want to meet in their offices? Or would you like them to come here?
It's all part of the world. It's fine. Maybe they want to meet.
Okay, I'll find out.
schedule on the Farmers Day market day, go down there.
Which farm is most of it?
I've never been to their farmer's market. Is it really good?
It's really good.
Yeah.
It's really good.
Oh,
Yeah.
always the last to know
Really
stuff.
good is soft pedaling.
Yeah.
Is it Folsom?
It's in Missoula.
Folsom, so.
This company, their office is in Missoula, so. Okay, road trip and veggies, but I just heard that.
Days do they have your farm?
My wife and I'll find it.
Oh.
Well, this is important information. I'm Googling.
I don't go to those very often, but I was pretty kick out of it because you rarely see a farmer.
That's true.
Anymore.
They're on Tuesdays.
I think they have one on Saturday that's kind of, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, that's Saturday, Crafts Market and Farmers Market.
Yeah, it's big. It's kind of an event.
You avoid downtown on Saturdays
Yeah.
unless you're going to the farmers.
Yeah.
Right.
And then the Saturday for me, it's a Saturday, probably likely to be out of town.
Well, I doubt the architects want to meet on this Saturday.
Right now, for me, the 15th is.
Okay, so the 15th is the only one.
15th or 29th.
Yeah, 15th, 22nd, 24th.
22nd out for me.
Well, I kind of love the fact that we're basing a meeting around the farmer's market, so that's kind of cool.
22nd up too, so.
Okay.
Right. Good enough. Okay. Where do you, any other questions on that one? Okay, 27, so somebody, I gather, is handling the water engineer report today.
Yep, I've got that, the
All right.
first portion of that.
Thank you.
This first one that you have in your folder is just a couple of pie charts about our weekly walk-ins and weekly incoming calls. Weekly walk-ins, for the month of June, we have mostly on Fridays and Mondays. While the incoming calls mostly come in on Monday and Tuesdays. The next one is the monthly comparison of traffic. Well, the data's been collected prior to the month's end. June seems to be kind of a lower month for weekly traffic.
The phone, just curious, are the phone calls and, you know, they primarily inquiries or do people actually accomplishing something?
They're mostly inquiries on how to submit an application, or usually people are checking in on their application status or deficiency letters that they've received that they would like clarification on. That's what it mostly is. Sometimes people would like to call to see when we're open or anything like that. So there is a wide variety. But it's mostly just inquiries. We have been getting a lot of water board questions though.
How are we answering those water questions?
I try to help them the best that I can with their water rights, that these are the water rights you have. Then I explain the objection process to them, and then I usually give them the water book number, so.
You know, people don't usually pay attention to those things until they have to. Any questions on those two charts? Okay.
All right, well, the next one is the water right report. As of right now, we do have a new geothermal application that's come in June. That is our second geothermal application. And thanks to Amanda and Christy, we have 94 Part Bs that have been issued this year, which now surpasses all of 2023 and 2024 combined.
Say that again, Sydney, about the Part B,
Yeah, so there's been 94 Part Bs that have been issued.
where do I see that on this? On the issue column,
So those 94 are all in 2025. 30 have been done in the month of June. And then you can see in 2023, there was 37 issued, and in 24, 46 were issued.
It's been busy.
Oh, yeah. Amanda and Christy have been great with issuing.
Did the irrigation project stop water business?
Yeah, so that
Alright.
has, yeah, that has slowed down as of right now. We have a couple of people trickling in. We did have about 15 come in on their original day when CITT held their meeting. It was held across the street on a Friday, and so we did get about 12 applications from that, but about 15 people came in for it. Since then, we've only had a couple trickle in. But in total, there should be around 83 applications from the CITT grant.
Haven't had many yet.
Yeah, not that many yet, so
I've had a deadline.
I'm not entirely sure if there's a deadline for them to turn it in.
Yeah, I don't. Oh,
So I've had a couple conversations, with people I guess got my ear. That, and then this is a good segue for it, that we should be doing a press release to the leader. Telling them how many permits we've issued and how many water rights we've issued and whatnot, and, you know, this is great that you got this many in 2025, so. I think if we could get something out, then, that would help, inform the public of this office as how it's, functioning. And, the amount of production that's been going on, so if you guys. I know Ethan's not here, but when he returns, maybe you guys could work on a press release to that, so, to that extent.
Okay, absolutely.
can I ask what prompts that?
Just those conversations that I've had, that it sounds like people don't even hardly know to some degree that this office, what's going on with it, that it's as operable as it is, functioning as it is, and there's just kind of, it's just, it's there, what's going on. So it's to give the public an idea of how we progressed over the time that we've operated.
Sort of a high level status report?
Yeah, just stuff.
Maybe something when Ethan gets back, if you guys want to look up a draft, I'd like the board to see it.
Yeah,
And then maybe even approve it, or at least see it before we go out, so you have something for it.
yeah,
All right?
yeah.
Okay.
I just thought it was a good suggestion, a good idea, and get something out.
Yeah.
I think, you know, when we first got started as a board, one of our early definitions of success was issued permit. And when you frame that in context of the number of years where there were none, this is a big step forward, isn't it?
Yeah.
So I think we need to let the public know what our definition of success is, and then tell them that we've hit it. So they may have a different understanding. Mhm. Different one.
Good. Any other questions or comments on this chart? Yeah, it'd be good to look at, I think, depending on, I think some numbers would be good, but I think we want to kind of give them a high level picture of progress. Yeah. And for example, if we put in there, we got 94 Part Bs. No one's gonna know what Part B is, it's actually a conflict, so we want to make sure whatever we put in there, just give it a brief, simple explanation, but yeah. It's good. All right. Anything else on that chart?
All right, the next one is the staffing updates. Dustin Walters accepted the hydrologist 2 position. He came in on Friday and sent his hiring paperwork. He's got a July 1st start.
Cool. Well, the Dustin Walters is, but where's he from? Do we know where?
I sat in an interview with him,
Cool.
also. And, he's similar to Shane in that he worked for the Forest Service and then took an early retirement. And he's gone through a 4-month training period actually with the DNRC and the Water Rights Office in Missoula. And he had been working on water rights for the Forest Service, so he comes with some pretty good experience. And I think Ethan recognized that he could step in and go to work right away with very little training. And so he looks like he'll be a key employee. He seemed like very pleasant person to work with. And, he was anxious to come aboard.
In Missoula,
He lives in Missoula.
lives in Missoula.
Yeah, so he'll commute here too, but I think the offer is that he works 4 days, per week in this office.
So where do they work with forces
The regional office now in Missoula.
on Zoom?
Yeah,
He was probably in the office, he worked on water rights during their negotiation.
Shane did know him and gave him a good recommendation also. So,
That means a lot.
That's where I did my water rights for the jail office. Probably predated him.
yeah. I don't even touch that.
Yeah, I know. Very diplomatic.
Well, very good, thank you.
The next one is that, the OE is proceeding with adding the SKC intern, Stephen Stratton Jr. And he came in on Friday to also do his interview with Georgia and Ethan. Sounds like it went well.
It did. If I may add something, similar to the internship that we had with Scott, Stephen's internship is paid for through a grant that the SKC, there's an SKC program that provides real life work opportunities, and the grant pays for those opportunities. So we're getting a very capable person coming aboard to help, but it's at no cost to our budget. So it's a win-win.
You know, Stephen, I know him from one class and he's still very capable in class.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes.
All right, very good, thank you.
The next one, 7.3, is the recommended decision milestone update. That is what you have in your packet. The recommended decision was issued. And it was posted into 3 separate newspapers. That was the Turkista, Lake County Leader, and Lake County Advertiser for public comment period. The decision was to grant Joel Claremont
Again, this is for the use of flatheads and compact water. So just a reminder within the ordinance, that's an application that, the tribes or a delegate from the tribes can apply for use of water on the reservation. And the first step is for staff to review, which Sydney took quite a bit of time, out of her schedule to do this and draft this recommended decision. So this is the first staff drafted recommended decision to grant from this office. So I think Sydney deserves some good credit on that. So it's a big accomplishment with that. And as a reminder, in the ordinance, this is now on the 45-day objection period. So that's why those newspapers were utilized to post this for notice.
You got it.
So am I correct then, Sydney? This is the only application of its type in the nation,
Yes.
and you got to walk it through.
Yeah.
So good for you.
Thank you.
Yeah, good. Thank you. Looks, I mean, just glancing at it, it looks, well done. So the dates in terms of when it was advertised and when is the 45 day period?
Yeah, absolutely. So it was advertised, it will be advertised twice in these newspapers. Once was during this week and once again in 2 weeks from now. The 45-day objection period is up July. I have it written down on my desk on a sticky note, but.
But it's roughly in sometime in July.
Yeah, end of July.
Okay.
This has also been posted on our website. As per the ordinance as well.
And I guess just another reminder too, the board did approve an office form for an objection to an application for this type of right. So that objection form is available on the website currently. So it's not something that, an interested party or, harmed party would have to create on their own. There is a form available.
They can just download it, print it out.
Yep.
So it has been, advertised. Anything yet?
No, not yet.
All right. Look forward to the meeting. Thank you. Any questions? Yeah, I know you're studying it closely.
Well, I'm studying it lately. Other than the use of conventions, it's really well done. That's just a pet peeve of mine.
I would also like to say that there will be an edit to the recommended decision. And that one will be posted onto our website as well. It doesn't change the decision in itself, it's just that, there was a clerical error in it. And so that will be amended and posted.
It's something, what is that?
Yeah, in here. On page 2, it first comments about the annual volume of 167 acre feet. That should have been 202.
May I make a comment? Yeah, well, I did really just skim it, but I really like the way you did it. You didn't take any shortcuts. It's very methodical and laid everything out. Just in my other life, I appreciate that kind of stuff.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Thank you. And the 167 should be.
202. And that will be amended and posted as well.
Any other questions? No. Very good, Cindy, thank you.
Thank you. This next one is the 6 DDF approval letter for 406 development. That is an application to construct a development domestic allowance. This was drafted and finished on 5/28.
Is this the first one of these as well?
This is actually the second. Although, the first one that we received, we did get a copy for, last week. But this is the first one that wasn't already in use. The very first one we received, it was an old well that was already in use for, I think it was like 4 of these pads. So this is the first one for a new well.
And I can provide a little bit more on just kind of the ordinance structure and the processes within the ordinance on this, so. This looks obviously different, right, so you see the two different, issuances here, right, so we have a recommended decision to grant, which is an actual, narrative on the application itself. There's the objection period for this, and then, if there are objections received, it could go in front of the engineer for a hearing. It could also go in front of the board on appeal. So this recommended decision to grant is more akin to what you've seen with like a complaint, right? Where you have a narrative, and then that could be potentially appealed further, with the engineer and the board. This is an actual issuance, so this is an issuance letter, and it goes directly to the applicant, just stating what the reasons are for the issuance.
The water measurement devices, how are we dealing with that? Do we provide it, do they have to, do we have a standard for what they provide, how does that work?
Yeah, so we have a device review in which, that's part of their application process where they tell us what they would like to use and how their measurement plan works. And then they do receive a form in which they give us monthly numbers on that device. And they'll return it in a year.
They've drilled the well yet?
No, not yet.
I'm just curious. I don't know exactly where this is on Rocky Point Road, but it's always been interesting to me that the closer you get to the lake, the deeper you have to drill to hit water.
Yeah, this is actually right by the highway.
Oh, okay.
Mhm.
They may not have that issue.
Mhm.
Is it really? Yeah. Yeah, it's crazy, isn't it?
Mr. Chair, I know Ethan would want to point out that the issuance is, the WPMPs at work, as well. So your question about the measurement devices, that comes directly out of 22-117, subsection 22. So looking at, the OE approved measuring devices and then the other standards for the measurement devices as well. So I know he'd probably say that if you were here.
I know it's there, I was just curious. You reminded how we're processing that since, especially since it's new, and your question about the location, is there location to find on here? Is there a legal description and or a map?
And there's just the physical address is on it.
We don't do a legal description for a map for these.
Not within the approval letter. We did receive anywhere between like 10 and 15 maps from them.
Any other questions? Good, thank you.
This next one, the 7.5, I believe to Haley.
I'm gonna keep it real simple here, because I think, I mean, Ethan would love to speak on this, if he were here, but, what you have in front of you is a pay boost and promotion plan, for Sydney Palmer. I think the two biggest things to pull from this is just, an immediate, recognition to, provide her with a pay boost, for all of her achievements, which are listed throughout this document. On pages 3 and 4, it goes through a whole list of things that she was required to do to get that pay boost. So you can take a look at all of those things, in detail if you would like to. And then the second piece of this promotion plan, is to have her start gearing into the policy advisor for the Office of the Engineer. And that's also listed, on pages 3 and 4, so it's a stepwise promotion task plan, for her to complete. But I think what this document underscores is just her tremendous work, for the Office of the Engineer and her deservedness of the pay increase and promotion.
Very good.
Well, the policy is right up your wheelhouse, isn't it?
Yeah.
That's your thing, so pleased to see that.
Very good. Do we need action?
We need board consensus for this.
Consensus?
Yes, please.
Okay. Please take a look at it. Anyone? Any questions? Questions? Or- Yes, but now it's good.
Yes, pleased to provide consensus.
Yes.
Yeah, good job, Sydney.
Yes, it's good all the way around. Thank you, Sydney.
Mhm.
Thank you.
Good job.
We're good, moving on. This is good stuff. All right, yeah. Now policies, okay. No policies.
I don't know, so I mean, a couple changes based off of some edits I received from Roger, they're pretty minimal, I know he does have some discussion points for this topic today, so we can get into it if the board members are ready, just as a reminder, this already went out for notice and comment for a 15-day period, there were no comments received from members of the public. But I did ask board members to send in edits, to the document if they've had any. So I made just very small changes that Roger had provided me. But I do know he does have some discussion points within this document, so we can kind of free for all. I mean, wherever you guys want to go. I would just like to remind you that, any sort of, substantive changes will need to go back out for notice and comment. Which is completely fine.
So the documents we're looking at are this 10.2. And then,
So the entire document it's like 45 pages or whatever, so we did not print that out. It is up on the screen for you all to go to whatever section we'd like to talk about. That particular handout is something that I think Ethan had been wanting to add in. I did have a conversation with him yesterday about it. I think it's more appropriate to have as like a kind of office rules, type flyer to have up. So kind of like a 1 through 5 reminder for office, like essentially just like office etiquette. And rather than putting it in the personnel policies, and he was okay with that suggestion.
for this.
Yes, that one page, yeah.
So aside from that, we've had. Going through this, and I'm just trying to remember, so we took the entire policy, we put it out for 15-day review. That's what you're talking about, so any other comments or questions? Does anybody want to do a final review or check on? And any of those? So the minor edits that were made, do we need to cover those?
No, they were, just adding in a term, that we just forgot to put in, but it's in the rest of the paragraph, and then just spelling out a word or two, so.
Yeah, the comments I provided, I believe it. Editorial or grammatical, but I did have concern about the physical witness fee, item. So I don't know if you want to get into that now.
If there are no other comments, I think let's just do that unless we can check up. They public comment period, no comments received on the personnel policies. So with that, do we need to take any further action on the personnel policies?
If we're gonna be making edits to this based off of, Roger's comments, then we'll have to put it back out for notice and comment. I mean, if there are no other changes, the board can approve it today.
We take approval. Okay.
Yes.
That was my question.
Yes,
Okay, physical fitness, yeah, let's. Where we at?
All right, I guess I'll start then. So this one has kind of given me some consternation and and I have a number of reasons for that. Seems like this section got inserted at a pretty rapid pace. One of the big things, I have 3 issues with it. One is that, it it's kind of an unknown expense and we're still working on our budget. For instance, assuming that an individual fully utilizes this, it would be 2 hours a week at 50 weeks, that's 100 hours. Which equates to 12 and a half days. Seems like that's a significant impact to the services we provide. I know it's very employee oriented, but we also have some very employee oriented other benefits. For instance, our paid time off is 11 days. The state of Montana is 10 days. I think the tribes is 10 days, and the private sector is generally 6 to 8 days. Another benefit we have is that a new hire is given 100% credit for previous in-kind work for their vacation time, which is not done anywhere else. And so I think that's an extreme benefit that we offer to employees. The other thing that gave me consternation on this is that we don't have any procedure for how it's implemented, and there's no accountability on how it's used. I've heard a couple examples where there's been problems arising with this. So I think until we have some sort of procedure on how the thing is actually used, and how it applies, that I think we need to go take a step back and look at that. And I don't think that was fully vetted. So I guess for those three reasons, I think we should kind of withdraw this item until we explore it further. That's my suggestion.
Would you like to just completely eliminate it or just,
I'd like to eliminate it at this time so that we can go ahead and finalize this policy and procedures.
if we agree to eliminate it at this time, do we need to go back out for the comment? Comments? Agree?
Yes.
Yeah. I think we need action on that.
If that's the final edit or comment you have, then yeah, you can have an action to put it out to public comment, but I think you have some other sections you want to talk about, right, Roger? I'm sorry, I thought you did. I may have been mistaken.
I think the others I included when I gave you those markup versions. Can you remind me what else I was?
No, I thought you just said that you wanted to revisit the PTO section, as a whole, but I may have misheard.
No, I'm gonna leave that for now.
Okay,
I just think we need to remove this at this time. And otherwise, I think we can go ahead.
So we would need to, do we need to, so we need action, and our action would be to remove it and put this back out for 15-day review.
correct.
Do we just put that section out or the entire policy?
We can put that section out. Yep, we can put out 3.15, so 3.15, and then just have a demarcation on there saying, that this was deleted.
I mean, right from my head. Okay,
If you, send just 3.15 out for notice and comment because of the substantive change, the board can also take action to approve the rest of the personnel policies for use for the office of the engineer,
okay,
minus 3.15.
that makes sense.
Okay.
So we should probably do those as two actions.
Correct.
So if you're ready, so let's start with start with the approval of the personnel policies without 3.15.
Mr. Chair, I move that we approve our personnel policies and procedures with the exception of section 3.
Motion by Jordan. Second by Ken. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Mr. Chair, I think we do have public online now.
Okay, so if we have any public comment on this, we'll take public comment.
If anyone online would like to speak, please raise your hand. Seeing no public comment online.
And there's no public in the audience for public comment, so, the second action would be to put out 3.15. The 15-day public review, that we will eliminate that section from the policy. Yes, before we take action, any final public comment on that? There's no public in the audience here.
If any public online would like to speak, please raise your hand. Seeing no public comment online.
Okay, we'll take the motion.
Yes, I'll make a motion to remove the physical fitness leave from section 3.15 and put this back out for public. Comment.
Motion by Roger,
I'll second it.
second by George, all in favor, say aye.
Aye. Yeah, I guess just a clarification on those, in the actual WPMP, it says physical fitness breaks. Whereas on our agenda, it says physical fitness leave. So I'm just assuming those are one and the same.
Is the section number the same,
Yeah,
3.15? I think we referred to the section
Yeah.
number.
right.
I think that should be adequate. Any issue with that, Haley?
I don't see any issue with it. That's, I believe, what Ethan was referring to, so.
All right, very good. And then just to touch on again, the infectious disease in the workplace, it was suggested rather than adopting a policy that we look at an office brochure flyer or some document that is available to the staff. Is that correct?
Correct.
The suggestion, any thoughts on that?
Good idea.
Good idea. Okay.
Sounds good.
We're good. Yeah, okay, we'll be on that. All right, we need to go. I need to go. All right. Let's take five. Thank you.
Coffee.
All right, welcome back. Good thing you weren't listening to all of our online shopping discussions. So, we decided to skip number 9, so we're on number 10.
Okay,
You can start it off.
all right.
I'll help you out.
Okay. All right, so water policy and procedures, next steps for permits and changes. This is kind of the, kind of has been on the to-do list for about a year. This was kind of propagated by the city of Folsom, also requesting that we begin that process or develop the process. So I guess we're at the stage now, we feel we can tackle this task. It is gonna be it amounts to developing new policies and procedures for accepting and processing groundwater permits, surface water permits, and water right change applications. The groundwater permits will be those permits that are in excess of 35 gallons a minute. So what we had done previously for like the domestic development allowance, we had a working group or committee that initially developed the policy and procedures, draft policy and procedures. And then we brought those forward to the board for review and comment and input on those. So we kind of perceive we follow that similar process. And as with item 10.1, we're at the point where we need to build a committee, a working group, I guess is what it amounts to. And so I have had considerable experience with this kind of stuff, so I told Ethan I'd give him a hand on that. I think Ethan has acknowledged he's gonna be on that, and I think he mentioned maybe Sydney, you're gonna participate in this.
Okay.
So, so anyway, we were also wondering if any other board member want to be involved.
Work, are you interested in that?
I could. Okay. That'd be great.
Sounds fair. All right, thank you,
That'd
George.
be great. So,
Thank you, Roger.
so Haley also has had some input relative to this. We know that we want this to be a working group, and so we also thought that I think and during the domestic development plans, we had input from both the DNLC and the CSKT people on that. We thought we should reach out to those two entities also and see if they want to have some involvement. So the DNRC I know has, and I guess one of the things with the DNRC is they have their own guidelines. We're not gonna adopt their guidelines verbatim. We recognize there's good stuff in there and stuff it's not probably applicable. So, but we do know that one of the DNRC people that has been involved with this is for long term, we'd like to have them involved because then we can find out what the pitfalls are with some of their processes and what the benefits are of some of their process. And similarly, the CSKT has a water resources division, and we solicit their involvement also. So that would be the working group. Once we have some verbiage in draft form, then we would take that to the next level of involving a stakeholder group. And that could be anything from municipalities to irrigators to commercial, industrial, whatever happened to be, because we want this to be public involvement, public input process also. So, am I missing anything?
No.
So anyway, I guess you can maybe talk about the memorandum a little bit.
Oh, yeah, sure. So just to, clue the public in on kind of how this process is gonna work, and what the board's thoughts are on the working group and then the stakeholder group. My suggestion was to draft a memo or just a letter from the board, outlining how this process is gonna work. That's something that you'd see with an agency stakeholder group that they just post on their website, for the public to look at and just be aware of what's going on, especially with something as comprehensive as permit changes.
So I thought that was a good suggestion. So we've kind of vetted this process with the legal counsel. They're on board with it, and I think that was a good idea to put some sort of memo on our website so that the public then can refer to it. And we can kind of get down the road on this process.
Sure. Timelines? I'm just, because people are gonna want to know. I'm just thinking, I mean, think about timelines, but I don't know what that is.
Yeah, I don't know how long it's gonna take us to work through this. Probably after we have an initial meeting or two, we'll have a better feel for it. I would imagine it'll be at least a 6 month process.
That was kind of what we did about 6 months. It was to put it out, we say, estimate 6 months plus or minus.
Mhm.
Good. Good. Any other questions?
Okay, well, yeah, we look forward to getting going on this. It's been in the thought process for a while, so.
Good.
I guess I have one additional thing. So after the stakeholder group, if there are any comments, suggestions, what have we put it into the working document, put it up for the board to review and look at its next public meeting following the stakeholder group, for then board approval to put out for notice of comment. So the procedures would still go out for notice of comment, so that anyone who wasn't maybe solicited for the stakeholder group could still have a chance to review and comment on it.
We probably have sort of a foundation for a lot of this built into the ordinance already, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
So we're just talking mostly about the administrative procedures here to do this. Form, the governing form.
We have a form already, for that. It's that comprehensive, form that includes a couple different, application types, on it. This would, yeah, for example, so reviewing a permit, you might look at, legal availability, right, or physical availability. So the procedures would essentially supplement what's in the ordinance and how the office of the engineer would be reviewing legal or physical availability, within the boundaries of the reservation.
Anything else on that? All right, looking forward to it. Thank you. All right, scenarios if timing allows. I think we have time.
Okay, so the next few items within your packet. The first one being kind of a written out script of issues and questions that we have about two well-read abstracts. One is they're both statement of claims. These two statement of claims are real water rights. The names have been changed and the identifying features have been changed, but everything else remains the same. Want to take just a second to look over both of them?
So just to give a little bit of background, the city's gonna go through this whole thing. But this is like a collaborative process for board members to understand the complexities of water right issues that could arise on the reservation here, and then what our parameters are under the compact and the ordinance for reviewing those and evaluating those water rights. And then maybe some potential future issues that we might need to address in, per se, like the permit and change procedures. So it's just giving the board an understanding of some of these complexities, so feel free to jump in, ask questions, provide your own experience and thoughts.
So at this point, it's mostly just to begin to develop our collective understanding and growth around these issues. There's no action we're trying to take today on these,
No,
just
this is just an example
Learning.
scenario, yep, so that you can understand what the office, Ethan, myself, have to evaluate.
very good.
So I might add one thing to that, preface also. So these, as Sydney mentioned, these are statements of claims. there's two types of water rights in Montana. One is the permits, the other is the statement of claims. As the Montana Water Use Act went into effect July 1, 1973. So anything prior to that is a statement of claim. After the Water Act became established, then the permit process started. So these are all pre-July 1, 1973 water rights. The other thing to point out on this is you'll see it right up on top. Cindy will probably talk about this. Water right number 76L, that's a basin. So that's the lower basin of the flathead drainage. 76L and 76LJ, which are above 76LJ being the upper basin above Folsom basically, they're the last two basins in the state of Montana to be adjudicated. And that's because the water court was holding off on the adjudication until the compact was established. So now the water court is adjudicating these. There's some final process going on right now to if water right owners can file an objection on these. On the second page, you'll see there's a box down, lower box that's Hatcher. Those are issue remarks that when the DNRC has reviewed all of these claims and if they determine the claim didn't have any issues, then there would be no box. But in this case, you can see that the DNRC's review has determined there are issues associated with at least the first water right. And I've got and the second water right doesn't have any issue remarks, so that's clean. So that'll go right through the water court. The water court is responsible now for adjusting these as they determine. You wanna, is there anything I miss on that?
Yeah, I mean, I'll add a little bit more depth to the water court process. So both those basins, are now open, in front of the water court. So 76LJ, I believe, is in, a NOIA period right now, which is a notice of intent to appear. So I believe it's already gone through its objection phase, meaning that anybody who, wants to object to those water rights that are within that basin can do that, they can file an objection on that. And then anybody who is interested in water rights can file an NOIA, and you're essentially just watching those water rights go through the water court. If it gets put into a consolidated case, which is what the water court does, they'll take certain claims that are related or might have similar impact on each other or on other water rights. They'll put them in a consolidated case. And then that involves usually the claimant, so the owner of the water rights called the claimant. And then the objector, if there are any, and then any notice of intent to appears. So all of those parties would be involved in the consolidated case in front of the water court. And that, I mean, those cases can go on for years. So you essentially are working through not only any issue remarks that are on the claimant's water right, but also any objections that have been filed from objectors. There's also a counter objection phase, but that's getting really in depth with that. But it can be really bogged down and involve many parties for one consolidated case. It is like a traditional litigation too, where you can involve discovery, motions and briefing, hearings, trial. So I just got done with the water court trial last week. And it's in front of the water court judge. It's a bench trial, so it means it's not in front of a jury. And they essentially put on a case. You have expert witnesses, lay witnesses, you go through all that evidence, and then the water court comes back with an order. The majority of these cases, though, that get consolidated are usually handled by a water master, which they're essentially like a judicial akin to the judge, but they handle all of the kind of like the maybe simpler issues to just get cleaned up if they can before even getting to a hearing or trial. But they do a lot of the upfront work on these cases. They'll even handle mediations between water users for these cases. So they do a lot of that work precursor to the judge. But they'll issue a master's report, and then the master's report, you usually have like 10 days to review that. And if there's no issues with the master's report, then an order gets issued. So that's how a lot of those kind of get cleaned up, is through the master's report and then an order, but there are a few that do get sent to the judge and then are on a hearing track. So that's kind of where things are at right now with 76LJ. It's kind of getting down that line, and then 76L just opened up its objection period, I think like a week or two ago. So that's also getting rolling right now.
So that water court process is where the compact is.
Yes, and that is a separate, yeah, and that's a separate piece of all of this
Yes.
that kind of gets mushed together. So that goes to the actual integrity of the compact and the ordinance. So you know, whether it's lawful and reasonable, and then that has already gone through a couple different variations of hearings. So there's the evidentiary hearings, there was the adequacy and fairness hearing. I think they're heading into briefing in August on some issues as well. So that is still going on, like alongside of not only our work that we're doing, but the basin adjudication and 76LJ and 76L. So quite a bit.
Which basin do they put the compact in? When they do the final order?
Yeah, I mean, it's gonna be in both. Yep, it's gonna be in both. So, it has to be verified first, and then essentially it'll be adjudicated after that's been gone through all of the hearings and everything.
And then a decree will be issued.
Yes, that's the ultimate, piece that comes out of the water court is the decree, the final decree. So right now it's a preliminary decree, in both the basins. So if you were to look it up, it'll say preliminary decree 76LJ, preliminary decree 76L. And that's essentially just looking at all these preliminary issues that we're talking about to be consolidated into cases. And then after it goes through the water court, it becomes a final decree. And that's essentially what you are supposed to abide by, right? Like that has been adjudicated, it's been fleshed out, that is your parameter.
Which is the water.
It's complicated, to say the least.
It's been lengthy. It would have been lengthier if we continued to litigation.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Who is Buster Bronco?
So Buster Bronco owns the water right for 76L123, along with George Orwell and the tribes.
Classic lip lovers in this office.
I don't know, Buster Bronco is the mascot for Boise State University. If a portion of the place of use is located on tribal trust and a portion of the place of use is located on fee simple, who has the jurisdiction of an ownership change?
Both. It'd be both.
The follow-up to that one is, should the single water right be treated as if it has two jurisdictions for ownership updates, even though the right covers both trust and fee lands?
So
Go ahead. Go ahead.
Just, I need education here. When you say ownership updates, I'm thinking database. Am I thinking correctly? So you'd have to update,
Yes, so the OE can only do ownership changes here, and then the DNRC. doesn't do ownership changes. And so we are unable to touch each other's water rights.
gotcha. Not complex at all.
No.
Okay, thank you.
What is the answer?
Yeah,
There is no real good answer, I think. Like I said, these are actual, statement of claims, and so nothing's been changed outside of the physical address. And the names.
So are these policies this office will have to develop in coordination with others as you're working through? I mean, these seem really unique, correct?
Probably. Yeah, so I'll provide a little bit more clarification on the ownership updates piece. So in the compact, the board does not have jurisdiction for water right ownership updates for water rights pertinent to fee lands. So that, we know that already, like that is inherently within the compact, we cannot touch that.
Right.
The issue is with these tribal trust applications. Essentially, that is inherently within the boundaries of the reservation, and it pertains to the tribal water right, which is under the compact and the ordinance, which the board does have the jurisdiction over. So that's the piece that we don't really have a direct answer on yet. As far as the portion of, so for example, in this, the portion of the place of use that's located on fee simple, and we have that answer. That's within the compact. The board doesn't have the jurisdiction over that. So the real piece is, well, there could be water rights that might have a portion of the legal land description within fee simple, and then maybe there's a portion they want to put in tribal trust. And so how do we handle that? Is it a coordinated effort with DNRC? Is it something where we do have the fee simple is inherently with DNRC and the tribal trust will try to parse out for ownership through this office? That's something we don't have an answer to yet. So to answer your question, yes, I mean, that's a live issue that we've had conversations about, we just don't have answers to yet.
and just to digress a minute on the ownership updates, we talked about that previously at a board meeting where the DNRC has what's called a realty transfer certificate, it's an RTC. And so anytime a piece of property changes hands, the Department of Revenue gets that information. And that information then is conveyed to the DNRC that has occurred. So it's an internal process that it just works. I mean, it's kind of an automatic thing. So unless the reader doesn't misses it and doesn't pick up on it. So that's kind of a given, and I think that's probably why it's recognized in the compact that occurs, but yeah, so I guess my question then, so the change from fee simple to tribal trust, that would be if the tribe purchased a piece of private property and then it had a water right and then brought that into the tribal trust or into, tribal trust. So I mean that.
So it's tribally owned fee land into trust status.
Yeah.
Is what it is.
Yeah, so, yeah, okay. So can we make that? Then, yeah, okay.
Yeah, it's just not, it's not distinctly laid out in the ordinance on, how we would kind of proceed with an ownership update for a tribal trust, right? And that would have to work within the database. That's how you would make the change. And so that's the kind of process in the background that we're trying to figure out is how would we, maybe we have to communicate that with DNRC, right? Like, because maybe they only have control over the ownership updates in the database, and so maybe we have to have some sort of, letter or something saying this ownership update needs to occur. We just haven't figured that out yet, but it is an issue that could arise.
With the state meeting process and DNRC and the process you just described, that's one element. On the trust side, updating ownership involves the tribe and the BIA. There must be some consideration for that.
Yeah, so I mean, that process is described within the ordinance, on how that would work with the feds at least. But the change to the water right itself, and I don't mean changes in like permits and change, right? It's not this big old change. It's this administrative change to make it the correct owner. That all has to occur within the database. So that's not something that the feds would update for us, like that has to occur within the database.
Right.
And so that's the kind of real crux in this issue, is how that would happen.
So, following on those comments, so we move toward developing a protocol for that, a policy for that, how we do that, or in how we get there. Would you be looking at some sort of a, lack of a better term, a joint work group in the state and the board or staff? Try to work through those case by case.
So it wouldn't necessarily be anything that the DNRC would be evaluating, because the evaluation would come from this office. I think it would be probably more akin to them just notifying the DNRC that that ownership update needs to occur.
Okay, can I ask a dumb question? Is there ever an instance where someone outside the res could donate land to the tribe? And then that land become something this office would have to deal with?
If there's a water right associated with that piece of property, that would get picked up by the RTC process, though.
Right.
Okay.
And so that should occur. That update should occur.
Okay,
Yeah, and I think, so the other piece that we have to kind of remember too, and there are going to be instances where this is going to be an issue, but the jurisdiction extends to the exterior boundaries of the reservation. And so if there's a parcel and a water right that are outside of the boundaries of the reservation, then this office does not, the board does not have jurisdiction over that. So the tribes can own property outside of the reservation, it's just, we would
Our
have that jurisdiction, right? So the state would have that jurisdiction to then make the ownership update. And then the tribes would handle that parcel and water rights.
okay, to get clarification.
There will be scenarios where we are gonna have to figure out how the boundary works though. For example, that legal and physical availability. There are gonna be water rights that teeter on the boundary of the reservation. How does this office look at legal and physical availability or even adverse effects? If there's a water right that teeters the boundary? Is that something that, we would have to involve some DNRC folks? We just don't know. So it's not a bright line. But for purposes of an ownership update, it would be.
Yeah. You start thinking about it, you get complicated enough already, but it'll get more complicated because we have about interactions between water rights that are either on the border or not even on the authorization water rights having an impact. Yeah. Could be in some places.
All right, so the next one is a contract for deed for a statement of claim. Who should the owner be on that water right?
The original owner until the transfer was completed. I assume.
The follow-up to that one is when there's an adjudication remark regarding contract for deed ownership changes for statement of claims occurring through an order on a consolidated case. Where the court requires DNRC to process the ownership update accordingly. 2007 remarks that precedes ownership update process. And then when there is no adjudication remark regarding contract for deed, DNRC can independently make ownership changes that reflect property transfer actions. If this were a permit on fee, removal of the contract for deed owner would occur through the DNRC treating the owner as the seller.
Okay, I'm playing Battleship over here a little bit. So can I ask some dumb questions and you can walk me through perhaps? What is an adjudication remark?
So those were the remarks on the 76L 9876 for Fitzgerald.
Okay. That's an adjudication remark. Okay.
Yeah, I mean, that's a really broad term. So the remarks, can be issue remarks or informational remarks, in nature. So issue remarks are something that the DNRC technicians have found to be at issue with an element of the water right. When I'm saying element of the water right, I'm talking about owner, priority date, purpose, flow rate / volume, acreage, source type, point of diversion, and place of use. So those are all elements of the water right. If the DNRC tech goes through and has any sort of issues with the elements of the water right, they will put an issue remark in that box,
Got it.
on the water right. And so it's essentially signaling the water court when it goes through adjudication that this was that issue with our office, and they'll usually put like a line or two on what they found and why. Sometimes they don't, and so it makes it tricky to try and guess what the issue actually is. But all of these water rights, okay, so this is only an abstract, all right? A water right is also comprised of your actual water right historical documentation. So that'll have like a notice in there of applying for your water right. It might have maps. It might have water resource survey notes and maps. That's from like the 40s, 50s, 60s. It might have, it might even have letters from historical landowners in it. That's not as common, but there are some of those. There's handwritten notes that are within those, historical documents. There are, any of the proceedings before the water court or district court prior to the adjudication. So you essentially learn everything you can from those documents about how the water right is now. And so that's sometimes where the DNRC will get their issue remarks from. It might also be from reviewing a map currently and saying, it doesn't seem like over time this water right's been in use based on, you know, aerial imagery. And so we flag it as abandoned or an issue of non-use. So that could be an example, of an issue mark.
I guess the other thing too is, just the adjudication process, well, it started, early 1980s. And everybody was required to file a claim form on their water rights, and there were different claims forms. There was domestic, irrigation, stock water, all kinds of claims forms. And so if you did not file a claim at that time, and there was a little subsequent period where you could file an amendment, but if you didn't file a claim, your water right is gone. It's history. So people filed claims, and the claims, a lot of these are just all handwritten things, like Haley says that's part of the record. So then what the adjudication is to look at all of these, because there's so much water legally on paper, but is it really being used, you know? So that was the purpose of the adjudication, to find out if these water rights are valid or not. And so, like, maybe, you know, and there's only certain times of the year when you can use it. So if you look at these issue remarks on this 76L987, like, the third one says the Lake County Water Resources Survey 1963 appears to indicate 0 acres irrigated. So the DNRC, in their process of examining each of these claims, use different information, and there's these old documents that at one time the state of Montana went through and physically went out on the ground and checked all of the water rights and what was there, and they built maps and tables and everything. And so that Lake County Water Resource, there's a water resource survey for each county in the state of Montana. And so they use, that's one source of information they use, because somebody had actually gone out and said, they're not using this, you know, there's no irrigation going on. But then they also use historic aerial photography, and so they would go in and look, and you could see, yeah, you know, this has been fallowed, it's pretty dark colored, it's got irrigation on it, and they would then figure out the acreage under that area. And so that's how, you know, the NRC tried to do a pretty comprehensive job of examining each of these water rights and putting these issue remarks on them. So, so that's what the water court is looking at, and that's how that's all part of the record that's built into that too.
So
I had a question, actually. Quasi personal, but I was looking at an abstract the other day. And it said priority date 1904. Then it said enforceable priority date 1985. And I'm going, I think the legislature gave an extension of some sort to people who didn't kindly file in 1973. And I'm wondering, maybe that was what I'm seeing there.
yeah, I mean, there were, I think, a couple different extension
Yeah.
periods. I mean, there was one for stock that occurred too, where you could file technically late on those,
So that's probably what it was. So, okay.
I
probably.
think so. I think you're exactly right on that. There were 2 extensions to this process, because some people didn't get them in, or they didn't want to, they didn't want to totally just tell them you're out of luck, you know, so. But if you didn't file timely, then you get a different priority.
Right.
You get the latter priority.
Georgia, this is an example of these water resource maps and notes. So this is an example of one. This is from the trial I had last week. But this is the map and what it looks like. So these red blotches here are all private irrigation that, you know, these technicians went out and actually mapped. And then they'll also have like ditch names that they found. Obviously, some of those might not be in existence anymore, or may have changed its ditch names since the 40s, 50s, 60s. But that's where you can also use the notes that accompany it. And so they're handwritten notes like this where they go through, they're supposed to go through each water right that's been filed. And verify it. So that's just an example to show you what it looks like.
Thank you. Yeah, so the actual body of supporting documents can be quite extensive then, can't it?
Yeah, you never wanna take the abstract at face value. I mean, you think it's gonna be inputted right in the database, but sometimes it's not, and so you need to review the actual file, the claim file is what it's called.
Okay.
Review that, and then that's why you also hire, like technicians, hydrogeologists, attorneys to look in that kind of stuff, go through records, all of that, so, yeah.
But those whole water resource survey books, they're a good source of information, and they did a heck of a job back then of writing in all the canals, all of the streams, and, you know, it's amazing the level of comprehension that's there.
Back on your point, though, I'm not sure that had to do with the extensions. I don't know what that is, I haven't heard that one.
That says.
Because if it's filed late, if it's filed late, when you simply, the water right goes away, it goes away, but they could file, but if they refile it, it would have to have been a permit. You could have filed for a water right, but if they missed the time period, the filing for the claim, and so you just, it was something that early priority to everything else.
This was a water course, they just statement of claim. That's right.
Yeah. Huh.
Yes, what goes in this?
So
I'm
the
curious.
contract for deed, for the contract for deed, my interpretation is that contract for deed starts the process for buying property, or is that an actual, that's not the actual final document, but, yeah.
Yeah, it's essentially, like an interim promise, right? So it's,
Yeah,
yeah, it's, you have an interested buyer. But there might be some time between actually finalizing the sale, and so that contract for deed essentially memorializes the future owner of the property and water right.
that's what I thought, which I think, yeah, it doesn't change until the actual, that's actually complete.
Correct, yep.
And on 76L 123, you can see Ernest Hemingway retained ownership, contract for deed interest. Which does lead us into like the next point, which is if the CSKT portion is held in tribal trust and Hemingway sold this property to CSKT, how do we fix the ownership issue? The ordinance contemplates a process to be established between the tribes and the board to manage ownership updates on tribal trust lands. And if the CSKT portion is held in fee simple, the jurisdiction is held by DMRC.
Okay, I was understanding that and then I wasn't. If the CSKT portion is held in fee simple within the reservation boundary, the jurisdiction is held by the DNRC.
Yes.
Yeah, that's what we were talking about with the compact language, saying that, the board doesn't have jurisdiction over ownership updates for, water rights that are pertinent to fee simple, so fee land,
So the jurisdiction is relative to the ownership update, not only the
Yes.
authority of the water.
right?
Okay.
It's
that's
just to
where-
process the ownership update.
Got it,
Yeah.
okay.
Yep, it's not to evaluate the right, so if there's anything that happened, you know, if there was a complaint that was filed on that right, or if there was a change that that owner filed for that water right, this office would have the jurisdiction over it.
Okay,
Yep.
thank you. Sorry, I don't mean to be the problem child here. I'm just trying to.
This is exactly what this is for.
Okay.
You're not
Yeah.
being the problem.
Are you guys all getting this? Cause it's
Yeah,
like,
we'll point that.
like battleship.
No, yeah, we have the time, and so this is kind of what Sydney and Ethan were hoping for, was this discussion.
Given that it was in the noon, it was scheduled to go to one, and we're still gonna have an executive section. You guys wanna hit pause, grab some food, and then we can maybe continue while we're eating?
Yeah, so just to note, the meeting is technically scheduled till 5. This was supposed to be an all-day meeting.
Oh, okay.
But on the agenda, the time was not updated, but it was noticed to the public as 9 to 5.
Oh, okay. That's how it went. Okay, no worries. We got time. We'll break in 10 minutes here and that's a lunch, how's that? All right, sounds good. What's next?
All right, so this next one is, how does the water right get split into multiple water rights? One tribal, one state-based, if the tribe's portion is held in tribal trust. DNRC Form 641 can be used for DNRC to split the right if the lands are held in simple fee entirely. The water court can also split the right during adjudication and before a water court judge. And if the property is held in trust, the split to action adds some complexity.
We're talking about water rights ownership, they're not land ownership.
Yeah.
So maybe I'll elaborate a little bit on that too. So the water right is a pertinent to the property. You know, and just arbitrarily say. Say this is the whole piece is 40 acres or something. But only and it gets split. One part of the split has 15 acres of irrigated land on their property and the other has 5 irrigated acres, then it gets split with portion. As it gets split 50-50. And that's all defined in that 641 on how that occurs. And so it can get complex too. Usually they have to then develop some sort of irrigation schedule saying, okay, I'll use this during this, you know, if it's 25-75, I'll use it 25% of the time, you get it 75% of the time, up to the volume that is allotted to that property. And then if we want to get really complicated, then they can do a change application and then add a point of diversion or do
Yeah.
something else to a split it up. Yeah. But then that's a whole new step.
Yeah, as described here, would almost contemplate the use of agreements between water users.
And to make that kind of move.
So that does kind of lead us into the next one, which is Georgia Well did come into the office. He contacted the OE and suggested that his portion of the water right is used to fill a pond on his property, but the water hasn't filled the pond in years. Or well wants to use a pump to fill the pond from the river. Is it allowable under a change?
How many years?
Straight pot, yeah.
I couldn't say.
So just to elaborate on that, because I think it's important and it is an issue that could potentially come up. So the reason why Ken said that is because under abandonment, if it's 10 successive years of non-use, that could be grounds for abandonment.
It's 9 years and 11 months. They can still squeak right in there.
No, but abandonment's not automatic. I mean,
Yeah.
is our abandonment the same
No,
as the states?
it's a presumption of abandonment, so. You haven't used it for 10 years, the court presumes you've abandoned it, but you come back with the arguments to say these are some legitimate reasons why I didn't.
If it goes to the court, but administratively, we just we have to follow some procedure.
No, yeah, there is a structure within the ordinance for abandonment. The office of the engineer can evaluate that, on its own when an application does come in. Ken's right, it's kind of like a two-part piece to it, so there is that presumption of that 10 successive years of non-use, but there also is this piece of intent. So if there's intent to abandon, but it's only been 5 years, right, but they've destroyed all the ditches, they've, basically cleared out their crops, everything, that goes towards an actual abandonment, that could essentially counteract the 10 successive years of non-use. And so there's two parts to it, and that is within the ordinance as well. So that's the same standard there.
Laurel wants to use a pump to fill his pond from the river, well, I guess the first question would be, what was the original source? And is that a source that would be allowed?
If I remember, the original source was from the river, but it was through irrigation canals. That led to his ponds. But the irrigation canals are out of use. And are not maintained anymore.
Irrigation canals are private or part of the irrigation project?
Private.
And this is also too where, as we're going, and I'm sorry if people already know this too, I just want to make sure, like, so you're seeing this. So when she's talking about, like source and, maybe means of diversion, you can again go to the abstract here. Source, it is claimed as Whitewash River, and it's surface water from Whitewash River. So that's the source we're looking at. And then it doesn't look like, let's see. It looks like it's an off stream on a few of them for means, so you look here, so here there's head gates, so it says like diversion means on there. So it's got 1, 2. 2 means of diversion and they're both head gates. So coming off the river there. And then the purpose is for irrigation and it's through sprinklers. So always reference back to this and then the claim file to see, what the specifics are for those means of diversion. So currently they're using a head gate to irrigate. So they want to switch from a head gate to a pump off the river.
The head gate hasn't been operational in some time. With that in mind, is it a change? Would it be an expansion of the water right?
Or is the water right still valid if it's not been functioning in a long time, right?
Well, changes, my understanding, can be any element. So it's doesn't have to be the entire thing, so I would assume there'd be some change involved because it could be looking at a different point of diversion. Different means of conveyance. different method of use. Any of those changes would cause a change, I think.
Yeah, I think if I were called to represent them, I'd have a very hard time advocating for that change because of the non-use. So I think the scenario would be, this water right has been abandoned, from non-use, and so the option would be to apply for a permit. And your priority date would then be 2025. You would lose the priority date that you have.
And it does seem odd, maybe not fatal, odd that he's using a head gate to run sprinklers.
Yeah.
I thought the same thing. Yeah, there's a village there.
So Georgia, that's the other piece of it. So if there is this kind of question of abandonment, or if there's clear intent of abandonment, then that's something that the office would pick up on if there would be a change application filed with the office. If that happens, they essentially, would be potentially harming others by essentially repicking up the use of this water or changing the use of this water. There's that potential. And so what you can do is, either essentially violate, this water right here and continue to use it legally. Or you can apply for a permit and get a new water right. However, you lose on this priority date that they have. So they have an 1854 priority date, which is a very early priority date. You'd have to file a permit and you get whatever the date of your permit grant would be. So if it's 2025, you'd have a 2025 priority date.
So you can have a priority date that predates statehood.
I think there's very few cases, and I think they're here mainly. Yeah.
Wow.
What is it?
You can have a priority date for a water right that predates statehood, because wasn't Montana a territory in 1854?
This is, yeah, 1855, right, was when statehood?
Well, it could have a use right.
Yeah.
From my experience, I've only seen one from 1854.
Yeah. I was gonna say, I think it's only on this reservation, right?
Yeah, and it kind of popped out because, they were, I wanted to say, going into like trust land or something, and they had this water right. But the trust water right, it went through the tribes, where it pushed their priority date by 1 year to 1855 instead of the 1854 that they previously had.
So I had a water right commissioner come and talk to my class, and he was the commissioner for the mussel shell. And he said, basically, any right on the mussel shell with date later in 1860 was worth it. I thought it was real surprising, but that's what he said.
Wait, the date later than?
Yeah, priority date later in 1860.
Was not worth it.
Yeah, there are some basins that have very old priority dates, and so the priority date, I don't have an example of a stack, but the priority date becomes important for reasons of call. So if water starts becoming short throughout the year, then the most senior users, so whoever has the earliest priority date, they would be able to enforce a call on junior users, that might be on that source. So essentially, they pick up the phone, they call down to their neighbor and say, I'm not getting enough water. You have to shut your water off. I have an earlier priority date. And so they have that priority to take water for what is allowed under their water right. And then it would continue down the priority date stack.
Okay.
So that's why it becomes important.
So if this would be a change, would it be done through the Montana Water Board due to it being a statement of claim, or is it done through us, the OE?
Depends on if the water court's already done for business. It's still in adjudication, it's a water court. Once they're done, it's us. Okay.
Yeah, and that's a little confusing because it's not technically a change within the water court. You go through the objection phase, and that's where you would make those objections to it. So somebody could object to this water right and say, you know, I have information that they intended to abandon this for whatever, how many years, this is why. And then it would go before the water court in that way. Whereas a change is an application that's filed, that goes through a technical office like DNRC or the Office of the Engineer. So it's a little different in terms of just terminology, but the idea is the same.
So it brings up an interesting question. What if nobody objects?
Isn't that the fun part?
Yeah, I mean, what does the water court do?
The water court only looks at what the DNRC issue remarks are and objections and notices of intent to appear. So that's why DNRC is, you know, you're theoretically supposed to look at those and provide issue remarks for the water court to look at.
If they're ready, we could just go through.
So like this one, no one objects. And they're like, okay,
Yeah, this one doesn't have the issue remarks, right? I mean, that's where you get the enforcement side of it. So let's say that, who was it, who came in? Orwell? Yeah. Let's say he starts, pumping water. And he hasn't in, 8 years, he's essentially he's let the head gate become in disrepair. So there's intent, there's multiple years of non-use on this area. That's where somebody could file a complaint. So there's the enforcement side of it, that if, maybe it gets through DNRC, it gets through the water court, there's nothing, right? There's the enforcement side of it at that point. Yeah.
Which could eventually end up back in court.
Yeah, it would be, it's district court, for the rest of the state. It's here, within the boundaries of the reservation, so. There's also another piece of it that's certification of the water court too, which gets really complicated. But those are issues, if the water court, or it's before the district court, for enforcement, somebody can petition for certification to the water court. And then the water court can relook at some issues. They aren't re-decreeing anything, but they're looking at it from their perspective.
Hard to find our final decisions are still subject to potential litigation. If somebody wants to.
Yeah, it's subject to a further appeal, yeah. Which so are the water court decisions. Water court decisions are subject to appeal to the Montana Supreme Court.
Oh, fun. So the compact's gonna end up back in the Supreme Court.
We don't know yet, right? It's a court of competent jurisdiction, so
Right.
the party kind of has a couple different choices for where they want to take a board decision.
Some of the validity of it all is already at the Supreme Court, so I'm not really sure how far they get. Okay. You ready to get paused? Okay, let's do that. All right, we are back in action, nice lunch break, with a few more items to cover, so. Take it away, Susan.
Okay, so we're still talking about, busted Bronco and George Orwell. If the original purpose for this water right was irrigation and it was no longer an irrigation occurring, what becomes the ponds?
So from the water right aspect, who cares?
Seemed like the towns were illegal anyways. They're not on the abstract, there's no record of them, so.
Where are we at, the last paragraph?
Yeah, the very last, bullet point on page 1. So they do talk about these three ponds. In the point of diversions, diversion 1 and 2. So you can see that the first one, the depth is 8 feet. 8 feet and 8 feet. All the surface area is 0.6 on the last one. So the ponds are there. But they're not being used for irrigation anymore.
Nothing has to happen to the pond, oh, we're gonna get the water.
Gosh, I mean, if this was it. It's like DRC's not here. It's like, if this is based off of a actual rate, I'm kind of surprised that this wouldn't be two different water rates. One for irrigation based off the head gate and a storage rate for the other ponds.
Yeah, this is one that, when it came to us, we pulled up the general abstract and just stared in horror for a moment.
Yeah.
Question though, this is what becomes of the ponds, nothing necessarily has to happen to the pond. It's just the issue with the water levels. Right.
Yeah, I think the only, potential action, with the ponds could be if there was, like, let's say that they start using water again illegally, there could be a complaint filed for that use. And then an enforcement action could be to fill in the ponds. But, yeah, I mean, on its face, nothing.
You know, without that pump, ponds are empty anyways. Quite long. Yeah. Water regulation. So, is there still a beneficial, use that matches the water right at this point?
That's a good question. And this is for you.
Yeah,
So I remember years ago, a guy from DNRC was talking to me and he said, you know, I have this guy in Big Fort, built his wife a fish pond. And he's taking water out of a swan, running it through the fish pond and putting it right back in, same amount, same
Wow.
temperature. He said, we can't figure out if that's a beneficial use or not.
yeah, I mean, it depends on what the type of the
Well-
right would be, but there's conservation as a beneficial use.
So last year, on that mine that when I put in on Smith River.
I don't know anything about that.
Oh, really?
No, I don't know anything
Oh,
about
that's
that.
right. You're on the side arguing that it's not a beneficial use.
Well, we
Okay.
represent the mine.
Huh?
We represent the mine.
I know. I saw that. So I'm not putting you on the spot. I'm just saying. The court,
I know nothing about this.
the court agreed with the concept that that wasn't a beneficial use.
Correct.
Okay, so
Mind you.
that's kind of what they're asking here is those ponds a beneficial use.
You know, in your first scenario about fishery though, So the DNRC won't give them their water right until you get a fish stocking permit from the Fish and Wildlife Parks.
Okay, this is just for his wife.
And then, yeah, but, and they won't, if they had applied for a water right, they have to give them, if they've stocked this ponds of fish, then the use is fishery. And then it's a valid use. But if they don't have a fish stocking permit, then,
These are probably goldfish or something.
well, then they got.
Well, invasive species.
Gosh.
What the basis of this question, is there still a beneficial use that not just the water, it doesn't say anything about whether there's pond or. Just to ask whether or not there's still a beneficial.
Well, the water
use.
right was for irrigation, that would have been beneficial use.
Mhm.
Ponds, I don't know if it's beneficial use or not,
Yeah, well, it doesn't say, it just says, is there still a water?
but you're still water right.
When you change the fund, if you don't change. The conveyance.
Sorry, really, really didn't mean to put you on.
No, you're good. I mean, I could go into the difference between mine dewatering and
No,
having storage ponds on your property.
That's-
Very different.
That's okay.
Work with it. We're trying to affect some water quality too.
Yeah, we don't go into that. This office does not look at water quality.
No, I just happened to be thinking about it, because I'm also on the other board. I know nothing about it.
Oh, I'm sure that's not true.
Well, I think it kind of goes back to what we were talking about earlier, is if there was a beneficial use, was it abandoned?
Right.
Okay, so this next bullet point, we're actually going to skip it since we do not have Ethan's maps. But if the tribes split off their portion of the water right and register the use as a tribal registration, 619F, through the OE, what becomes of the statement of claim? How does the OE avoid duplication for the same use?
Or if you avoiding the duplication, you're just changing the ownership of the same water right?
So it's just splitting off, kind of like a parent and a child, right? I would think. That the tribes would like to separate their portion from Buster Bronco and George Orwell. But if the use is for the same ponds. Same water. How do we avoid the duplication?
Ownership changes. Looks like to me.
I would probably make a suggestion to have, um, a issue remark, or just an informational remark, actually, informational remark. Added to this, that, the tribal portion of the water right, and then the private portion of the water right would be, overlapping or supplemental water rights. So you can have overlapping places of use. It's not duplicative, but it just means that the place of use or the point of version is shared with some other owner. And that just involves having an informational remark put on the water right.
If you have an overlap, do you have to have a means of measurement between the two owners?
Not necessarily. Yeah, as long as you're staying within what your flow and volume restrictions would be. No.
Make situations during water shortage.
I think that's what gets into this next question that's listed on here. If the tribe were to kind of parse out their own point of version and place of use from this water right, so you wanna read that one?
Yeah, if the tribes registered this use, do they become junior to the 1855 priority date?
And I think that should actually read, do they become junior with their then 1855 priority date?
Yeah, because this, the priority date on the one, 76 L 123 is 1854, but all time immemorial rights are 1855.
That's different. 1855 Civic Gate Time Memorial is earliest. Or second. 1855 and Time Memorial, two different.
So I can just help clarify with the 1855. So in the ordinance, if the tribes were to register their portion of this water right as a tribal registration, then it would be an 1855 priority date under the ordinance. So I think that's what that is supposed to be.
I don't know how much the question goes on, but the question was the 1854 priority. And that's what's being split out. I don't think they want to use that. Year difference. That's the-
So if they split, why wouldn't they retain the 1854 priority date?
They possibly could.
That's,
I think the scenario here is just saying, so in the ordinance, if the tribes were to register any part of the tribal water right, for tribal registration, then they're guaranteed the 1855 priority date. My note would be that this is where that claim file review comes in handy, right? Because there could be evidence that the tribes did, make this claim in 1854, and it just happened to be before 1855, so. Could be.
Okay, with that in consideration, we'll move on to the next one, which is Fitzgerald's water right, 76 L 987. F. Scott and Zelda want to develop a subdivision of 20 homes on their 40 acres. The first issue
How do they handle splitting the water like that they have?
So I have a question on that. I never have understood what the difference between fee and trust land is, so maybe somebody can explain that to me.
Oh. There's an underlying difference in the trust land is like, for example, private trust or individual trust is actually owned, it is owned by the United States in trust for. One of the practical differences is that individual trust and tribal trust don't pay property taxes. It's a practical difference, but the trust is actually owned by the United States in trust for. B is not trust and is regulated by the state and the taxes. Be simple property. There probably are some other legal nuances, but those are the practical differences.
Yeah.
As I understand it.
So.
Yeah.
The Philly Point Grill. There's a place right to the south of it, that's Tribal Trust. It's way down, I've probably seen it drove by, and it's always got a realtor sign. And they're trying to sell it, I'm like, how could you sell Tribal Trust land?
I know it's probably not tribal trusting because it's like individual trust, but not tribal.
Okay,
trust.
individual trust.
So an individual tribal member can own trust land and individual trust.
So it would be owned by,
Tribal trust would be owned by the Confederated Search and Improvement Tribes. And it's probably not for sale, but they don't sell the land.
okay, so, but it could be a private trust. And that is owned by the private trust owner, not the United States in trust.
No, it'd be owned by the United States and trust by that individual.
But that individual could then sell it.
Yeah, but they can only sell, if it is in trust, they can only sell it to the tribal member or to the tribes.
Okay.
It- I don't know, it's been, yeah. It's all about, that's why.
Yeah, I know.
Every time I look down, it's like, one of them.
I don't know which one that is.
Well, so, a follow-up question, then how does a Walton water work? If that's trust, right, individual trust, sell to a non-tribal member?
I'm not touching that.
Well, first of all, individuals had to have been aware that there was a Walton right and actually filed that.
Okay,
And a lot of people probably weren't. But the Walton quote.
Yeah.
Walton right is that this. If this. Individual. Trust property. Was put into fee. Which is a process. So I own this, I own the trust, individual trust, but I put it in the fee.
and then you can sell it for
And then you can sell it to a member. Walton. Implies that if it's a former allotment. That happens to. That on purchasing that. That's if you buy it, you get that 1855 priority date.
So that's the difference, it's allotment based.
Yeah.
Okay,
Because Walton is tied to transfer of former allotments.
okay. I forgot about that. Okay, good.
And that's, it's just, you know, your name allot Walton really stems from the name of the case.
So is fee land? Tribal property or is it private property or both?
The fee land is private, the tribes and individual tribal members can own fee land as well, and many do.
Big taxes.
Yeah.
And then is it true if you have tribal, if you have trust, and you want to switch it to fee, you have to pay them back taxes?
Well, that part I don't know, I don't think so.
Just something about that.
Nah, yeah, that sounds like, fake news. But, Take my word on it, but I don't believe so.
But I thought trust could only go to another tribal member or the tribe.
Mhm.
So it couldn't become fee.
Yeah, you can't, I can take, like, it's just, the tribe won't do it, but individual owners of trust property, if I own a piece of individual trust property, I can apply to put it into fee status, take it out of trust.
Got it. It's just tribal trust you can't do that with.
Well, that'd be up to the tribes. And the tribes typically aren't gonna do that.
They're not, I've never heard of that.
Tribal government doesn't sell their property. They used to tribal members, but now we can only trade. It's quite a process, I'm going through that process.
So, after the questions.
Oh, those are good questions.
Those are
too.
great questions, yeah.
We are on the reservation.
That's good to know.
So if this water right is owned by 3 people, F. Scott, Zelda, and the tribes in trust, how would they go about splitting the water right?
It depends.
Good answer. When we say how does it go about splitting, I think, you start by you start with the facts, the technical facts associated with the water use. And then you define the legal aspect of it by defining who owns what and where. And if it's one water right at all, it seems like they, whether it's part of the water right or not, it would seem like individuals would want to have some sort of a agreement to define how the water is going to be. And or long term, you actually do a physical split, you got their individual quantity diversion, individual place to use, individual means of conveyance. But that would probably require a refile and all of those. I just imagine, it depends on how.
Yeah, I guess the first thing I wanna look at is, like, what is the ownership of the parcels, right? Cause this is 80 acres,
Yeah.
so it's gotta be multiple parcels here. At least you would think, so you'd wanna check parcel ownership there. And a water right, you can have one water right go onto multiple parcels, cover multiple parcels, so. If the 40 acres for the subdivision that they wanna put in, does truly belong to F. Scott and Zelda, then you could split out the water right to be the 40 acres for their use and 20 acres for the tribe's interest.
If you look on the back, there are 6 GMOs
Yeah.
associated with it.
Yeah, so there's quite a few parcels on this water right. This actually has an example of what I was talking about with like the, kind of supplemental overlapping multiple use. Where it's lists that right here in the remarks and has the 2 water right numbers on there. It's just to. As an example, what that would look like.
The next issue is, does the OB or the water court change this right?
I think Clayton answered that with the other water, right? Depends where they are in the process.
How did they adjudicate the water quality? Then adjudicate the way.
Okay, if the OB changes.
Wouldn't it have to be adjudicated, so you know what's there?
Well, and so I was also gonna say, like, those issues would probably come out with just the issue remarks alone. I mean, this water right has 5 issue remarks that need to be resolved before the water court. So yeah, all of these would most likely be resolved in front of the water court. I mean, they have an exceedance issue remark on here. They have. Looks like state-based water right, part of the tribal water right, so additional evidence needs to be required to decree those. They have an acres irrigated issue remark. And a period of use issue mark, so.
So if the water court didn't do it and the OE didn't change it. How do they handle the obvious issue of period of use?
So. You might explain why that's an issue.
Of course, so the period of use is January 1st through December 31st for irrigation,
And what's the normal irrigation season?
April through October.
Yeah, and this is also a flood irrigation type, right, as well, so that's also got a limited, period of use as well, typically.
So the big underlying thing is. The period of use on the abstract is not accurate.
And that's in the comments, so again, that would be the multiple to figure out.
Yeah.
If it got this far, then chances are, the rest of it.
I think you address it by asking the claimants or group to show some evidence. Which they won't be able to do. And then you take, accordingly, take action.
Yeah, so, clarify a little bit of the timeline with this too. So again, this is coming from F. Scott and Zelda wanting to develop a subdivision with 20 homes on their 40 acres. And so they're gonna apply for development domestic allowance with the Office of the Engineer to develop those acres. See, like, let's just say that this all goes through the water court already. They don't change the January to December period of diversion. And so now this application comes before the office for this development domestic allowance. How would the office review that information in the context of a development domestic allowance? It's already gone through water court.
Then the period of use would be fine. Because it'd be.
Maybe,
Yeah.
but the Office of the Engineer staff also has the ability to review the elements that are within the water right. And flag anything of those elements that might cause a problem. And so for purposes of a development domestic allowance, they might limit the period of diversion for the development domestic allowance. Some ideas.
What would it be?
Probably whatever the normal flood irrigation period of diversion would be. So, April to November-ish, April, September, April, November, usually.
Is it changing the purpose? Of going to development domestic allowance?
Depends,
Yeah,
probably, but, yeah. I mean, if they have the bottom line, I think that Ethan's trying to get out of this is. The Office of the Engineer has that authority to review the elements within the constructs of the actual development domestic allowance that comes before the office. And so if it doesn't fit for what the purpose of that development domestic allowance is, then there might need to be some things that are tweaked or mitigated to allow for that development domestic allowance.
Can I tell you what I heard? And you can tell me if I'm tracking. Because I'm not sure I am. So you have this come before the water court. And for whatever reason, the water court does not catch that nuance between a calendar year, which these owners want for their subdivision, and the
Well-
actual
Yeah,
original water right, which was for an irrigation season. So if the water court misses it, this office still has the ability to catch it and address it.
yeah, so two separate things. So the water court's not looking at it from the perspective of they wanna develop. That they don't have that authority, like they aren't looking
Okay.
at anything for what they wanna use their water right for, aside from what's on the abstract.
Okay.
So they're only looking at what was the pre-1973 historical information to validate this water right. What the owners wanna do with their water right moving forward, the water court's not gonna look at.
Okay. Okay, so it's not that they missed it. It's just this office got additional information that the water court did not.
There could be information that the claimant presents to the water court that validates January to December. We don't know,
Okay.
during that period. So maybe they did and the water court says, yeah, that's fine. And they let it go through. When it comes before the office of the engineer, it's not in this kind of broad stroke review like it is in the water court. It's only in the context of the development domestic allowance.
Got it. Okay.
But going back to this particular case, there is an actual remark, there is a diversion in required modification.
Correct.
So if the water court let that go, then we have to build that in the context of development domestic allowance.
Right, but the water court also doesn't have to change anything just because there's an issue mark. They just have to address it. So there could be information that a claimant presents, right, for the validation of January to December, and the water court says, okay, that issue mark is cleared.
If that.
Yeah.
But if it's wrong, we still have to do it. That's my.
That-
If that's wrong, if it was an error, it was a mistake.
I
Well,
guess
well,
that's the
that-
question
that's-
I was trying to ask and I didn't ask it.
But that's tricky, right, because we aren't re-adjudicating. Like, so you can't just say like, oh, it's wrong because we know it's wrong, right? It's, once there's that application for the development domestic allowance, they're gonna put forward, we're wanting to use this water right to help with the 20 homes that we're putting on 40 acres, and it's gonna be then for domestic use and like small irrigation, right? Not this big old field. And so that's what they're saying, and it's based off of a flood irrigation right from January to December. Okay, that actually might work for 20 homes, right? You might need water all year round for 20 homes being put on 40
And
acres.
that's one of my
Right.
points, that maybe that fits that purpose now.
Exactly,
Yeah.
yep. So you aren't re-adjudicating it, like you don't just pick it up and go, yep, we know this is wrong, we're gonna fix it. It's, you have to look at it in the context of what the application is before the office.
But if it was wrong.
That would be like in the context of a complaint. So like if there was an illegal use and then look at the elements in that perspective and.
And you're saying this is based on an actual one?
Yes.
Ah. Mondays must be super fun here.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Hey, I just feel bad for the water court to have to adjudicate this. It's not gonna be easy.
Well, adds to our understanding of it, of how much time it's been, taking. Stay alive there. Think of them.
So we did already address issue number 4. Issue number 5, if the period of use is changed, would the volume be reduced and quantified? This is typically done on the historic use tab of Virus.
And the purpose,
Mm-hmm.
and then how the purpose fits into the language of the ordinance.
Yeah, and some water right types don't require a specific, volume to be quantified. For example, like stock use does not have a volume associated with their water right for stock purpose. It'll typically just say, like what's on this one, shall not exceed the amount put to historical and beneficial use. The 20 homes might need a volume.
Okay, so let's say that got denied, that, for whatever reason, the decision was, no, this is an April through October. You have a right for that. Could owners apply for a separate water right to fill in that other period? That'd be another option to go, right?
Yeah, just have a different priority date.
Okay.
They would probably have to reduce this.
Yeah, and that gets into a pretty complicated evaluation as well, because you're dealing with a statement of claim, adding on another permitted water right as well, so you get into the, that like combined annual diverted maximum volume question that we have on the 40 acres of land.
No easy answer on this one.
No, and it's not just us, I mean, the state has their own demons with that.
So the Fitzgeralds did come in. They have a statement of claim that allows for 10 acre feet of irrigation. The Fitzgeralds would also like to parcel off part of their property and would like to keep 2.4 acre feet free for valuation to sell to other parcels. There is no question, but that is what they came in for. So,
And what'd you tell them?
oh, I think I said, let me go get the water engineer for you real quick.
Well. Interesting concept. Their own land, their own parcel, their own water. I suppose they could,
Okay, I don't
but it
understand.
might also might complicate it is where the water is used, place of use. So they're kind of parcel off a piece. And keep 2.4 acres feet. Evaluation, sell the other parcel. Would have partial they're selling, they have water right on. That would be my.
Well, I think conceivably, correct me if I'm wrong, conceivably they could split off that little piece and put that portion of the water right and sever it. Hold it in abeyance, but then they have to come back and do a change application. Go through the change process to be able to do that, so. Then they have to go prove that that water was actually used and how much was used. Everything else.
Yeah, I didn't understand the last phrase. I didn't know what that means. What does it mean to keep 2.4 acre feet free for valuation to sell the other parcel? The way I read that is they're selling off that land to another owner. Is that what that means?
Yeah, they want to sell the parcel to a different owner, but they want to keep 2.4 from this water right attached to that parcel. And so for the valuation of the parcel they are selling.
Right, so they're essentially providing for either an individual or shared domestic allowance. The volume limit for an individual or shared domestic allowance is 2.4 under the ordinance, so you could, when they sell that parcel, the new owner could only put in an individual or shared domestic allowance, and so I think that's what it's getting at is under our WPMPs, it's the limit is 10 acre feet for every 40 acre parcel. And so how many times you subdivide it, it would probably end up having to be split out from those 40 acres. And so you don't over appropriate the 40 acres.
Yeah, but I don't understand how they could do that because this is a surface water right and. A domestic development or even a domestic alliance, it's a groundwater well.
Yeah,
So,
you have to put it in,
huh,
you would have to put it in,
but they're two different sources.
right? So the one development domestic allowance would be for the groundwater certificate. So you'd have probably a supplemental groundwater certificate to this service, right?
That still raises the question, how do you reduce the surface right to supplement the groundwater?
Tell me about the form you guys have.
What was that?
You have a reduction form.
Oh, yeah. The reduction form? Okay, so we do have a reduction form in which when you turn it in, it's also a change of use for a reduction form. You turn that in, you specify, this is the water right that I have, I would like to reduce the amount of water that we use. We've seen people use it because they have met that 10 acre feet. And so they will reduce one of their water rights so they can put in a new well to have X amount of water there.
But that's groundwater.
Yeah,
This is surface water and groundwater. I don't know how that looks either.
No, but just to give you an example of when there's more of those allowances being added, there is a form that the office has to reduce a previous volume to allow for a new allowance on that same 40 acre parcel. And that, development domestic allowance that you guys issued had a reduction, didn't it?
it did.
So you can take a look at, with the language in that too, from, at least from the office's perspective.
Still doesn't answer your question.
It would probably not happen.
Yeah.
Yeah.
This is very like
This is-
hyperbole, this is.
Yeah,
Okay, all right.
exactly.
Yeah.
Good. Keep it coming. Let's talk about these. Good for now on that one? Good. Yes, yeah. All right, next meeting, or meeting.
I'm available in all three of those days.
I am too.
I am also. Excuse me.
It's nice to be able to say that. You were like, yeah. It's like 9 to 9:30.
Another one was canceled, I'm going to set one back, so that I can be canceled on it, there's like 30 minutes, like I said, it's that sucks.
The other one, but I think I'm good with it. Yeah. Then we're gonna try to do all three. These are proposed.
Proposed.
Well, the 8th has a meeting invite sent out and the 16th already has a meeting invite sent out.
And the 8th is the training that's already scheduled.
The eighth,
Yes. The 16th, it's a meeting invite for 1 to 5.
must be something out on 23rd as well, if that's something.
I think I said one for 23rd.
Usually they can't turn it around that quickly. So,
Yeah, I know, I have a eye appointment that I've been trying to get in for like a year, because they're booked out that far.
Wow.
It's pretty bad, so I cannot miss that. On the 23rd. And unfortunately, it's at 2:30, so it's not like I could appear online.
There's gonna be 8th and 16th. Not 23rd, all three.
And I think I go with 8 and 16, see, decide on the 16th, next will be.
Okay. Good.
yeah. Scratch the 23rd.
Correct, 23rd for now.
I guess if we're gonna have another meeting though, that month, I would propose either the 29th or the 31st.
The 31st out for me. Okay, you wanna just hold off on the third date for now, or you wanna, and do something?
I would like to hold it off.
Okay,
We'll go 8 and 16, and then on the 8th and 16th, we'll talk about the possible meeting. See where that lands. Okay. 8th and 16th. All right, any comments?
Not for me.
Sure. Anything? Oh.
I'm good.
Didn't tell the head is going up and down or something.
oh, good.
Or both.
Yeah, I got the knots that bad.
That's okay, thank you. All right. So we will end our public meetings session. Adjourn to our executive sessions, a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
Thank you, McCann.
Second.
George, all in favor, say aye.
Bye.
All right. Any other turn?